Another thing that Polygonal Lasso tool is really useful for is doing cleanups and refinements to selections. So I'm going to jump ahead a little and use a little bit more advanced selection tool than our marquee or polygonal, the object selection tool. And this is one where when I hover over different parts of a photo, Photoshop is doing a good job generally of identifying that there's some objects here that could be selected. Now I do have add to selected as well, so as I continue to hover over different objects that it sees, it's merging those different selected areas together. But you can also see, I'm going to invert the selection so that we're selecting the background real quick by clicking contextual taskbar, invert, and then I'll rasterize this layer. It's a smart object right now, so I can delete some pixels. So I'm going to delete that background out of there. And you could see it couldn't even tell that there was this other tool there. And over top of this, hand area, there's a lot of gaps, a lot of areas that it missed. So I'm going to back up and say, okay, if we started with something like the select object tool, it does a pretty good job. But then I would typically then just switch to my polygonal lasso tool. Whoops. And I do want to have add to selection because I want to continue to select more parts of this hand. So I'm adding anywhere that I see little parts that it missed, loosely just selecting around them. Now clearly I do have to select this entire tool here, and I won't be super careful about it in the interest of time, but I could be if I was really doing this for real. But I'll just go around here and quickly select out the rest of this to add it to our selection and make our way back around. Double click to close that without being too precise. And then of course I want to also find any other little spots that I need to add to the selection and add to them. And this looks like we do want that little gap there to not be selected, but it didn't do a great job of going around the entire bottom part of that tool. So I'm going to try to see what it missed. And usually I would have to do a little back and forth because you can get confused on which parts you're selecting versus not pretty easily. But that to me looks great. And then of course I noticed up here, yeah, it did do a pretty good job of not selecting those negative spaces. So we currently have all of the objects and the hand selected. We want to do our invert selection now. We've cleaned it up. We started with object selection, which wasn't perfect. We cleaned it up, made it more precise with polygonal lasso tool. And now I can go into that same photo. I'm going to need to rasterize it if I want to delete pixels and do a destructive edit, but I could do that and I can see that that's a pretty good selection, right? Obviously, I would probably not do a destructive edit there. I would just use a mask, but we haven't quite got to masks yet, so I'm just doing it destructively for now. And but yeah, again, polygonal lasso tool, one of the most useful tools in the toolkit, one of my go-to tools, and highly recommended.